Welcome to the Exhorter Podcast, where we aim to stir up love and good works through bite-sized biblical discussion. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to discuss a topic that Kyle is going to present to us. Kyle, what is the topic we're going to talk about?
Well, a number of years ago, I was a counselor at summer camp, and I had the little boys cabin, like 9 and 10-year-olds, like the youngest age group at camp. So that meant an early bedtime, and so I would get them in bed and turn the lights out and tell them, with some threats, you better be quiet or else. And then I'd hang around outside the cabin for a few minutes and just see before I went and hung out with my friends, nearby, so I could keep an eye on them, but I'd be out of earshot. So I was like, I'd threaten them and just hang around a little bit and listen, make sure they were settled down. And one night at camp, I overheard, standing right outside a window, and they didn't know I was spying on them. I heard one camper go, "Psst, hey, I know the F word. It starts with F and ends with CK. And I was ready to kick the door and scream at this camper. And he goes, "Fire truck." And they all start laughing. I was just like, stupid kids.
What age?
9 and 10.
Okay.
9 and 10.
That's funny.
But that brings up a question that one of our listeners submitted. Actually, one of our Gold Star listeners. So thank you for the submission. But he shared a video with me that he found on TikTok, where it was a quote unquote religious Bible influencer, and he was making the observation that, well, words are just words and they don't have any inherent power, and so he just very brazenly used 3 different words, for poop and bleep and bleep. You can bleep those out, John, if you want, and make it sound like
I can only bleep things you actually say.
Yeah. So
It's blackmail.
So, and he said, well, why is one version of that word more offensive than another? They're just words.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about cursing, as in where you say something, call down evil or say something harmful or hurtful to somebody else. Calling somebody a jerk or an idiot is way worse than any of those quote unquote cuss words that people use today. And, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the basic gist of this idea. And I think a lot of people buy into it. And so I just want to start with you guys and just say, well, how do you guys draw the line as far as what words do you not use, and where do you draw that line? Like, why are some words off limits? Because when I look through the Bible, I certainly don't see a list of, yea, verily, I say to thee, these are the 9 naughty words thou shalt not ever say. Where do you guys draw the line? Because you don't find that list in the Bible that says these are the naughty words you shall not use.
Yeah.
Words my kids are not allowed to say.
Yeah.
My wife,
I have no
my
problem.
wife draws the line.
I can make a list for my kids and tell them that word is off limits, but as an adult, how do you kind of decide that? What guides you as far as well, that's a word I won't use, and why did you arrive at that conclusion?
I guess there's 2 things: other people and conscience. And my kids, around my kids, I'm not going to say the word oh, that sucks. I don't really mind saying that around my buddies, and I don't think that's...
Apparently you don't mind saying it on our podcast either.
Yeah, apparently, bleep that out, please, John. So where am I going with that?
Yeah, or with my kids, it's with our kids, I think they're starting to get old enough where we're moving past this, but for the longest time, it's oh, you fell on your buns?
Yeah, we're still there.
We didn't say butt.
Yeah, we don't say in my house, and maybe bleep that. We say toot instead.
Oh, okay.
And so it's at a certain point, you're 17 years old and you say, I tooted to your buddies. They're gonna be like, hey.
I don't say anything inappropriate ever. Obviously,
I'd
no.
suggest
I stay away from the general curse words, and I would say.
What about the more specific ones?
Yeah, those 2. I try to basically tote the line of how and what we've let the kids say, and try to kind of adopt that. I think over time, I have 14-year-old and a 7-year-old, and then 11-year-old split. So the 14-year-old starting to say things and that maybe he wasn't supposed to say before, and I don't want the 7-year-old to say. And I think there's a natural progression where their language needs to kind of increase and grow, but around the 7-year-old, they kind of still. The one thing that I hear in YouTube videos and I hear kids saying all the time, and it just has Yes, it's just that's become the thing that bothers me the most. What the and it's as if they've now found a way around
Yeah. Yeah.
found a way around,
Yeah.
getting in trouble for things.
Language
And I'm just
evolves.
like, no, I don't like that
Yeah.
because
Yeah. My middle daughter says that all the time. What the? And you're like, kid, okay, calm down. It's not that
I
big of a
don't
deal."
like it. So
Yeah.
I try to
All right, but where do you guys draw the line, though? Like, how do you determine that?
Okay, so a couple of things that have guided my
Environment.
thoughts.
Yeah. So around our kids, we all kind of agree. Around our
environment.
kids,
I'd say an environment, and then to a certain extent, your conscience. So I mean, there's words I just like. Even if we're talking about something, still have a hard time saying certain words like the A word and stuff like this. Even if I'm talking about something very specific to that, even if I'm reading from the New King James or the King James version.
Well, that's
because
why
it's just
that's why
not me.
there's no list of bad words. By the way, is because they all change. I mean, you got some words like the Bible, the older Bibles talk about damnation, and that's a word that sounds weird for me to say. Yeah, there's that, and there's
that place with Tim. I believe we pronounce it Shittim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is something that does change over time, and so it's like I think some of your answers about conscience or about how it's perceived. I think that's what maybe the TikToker was missing, and he was just very brazenly like, I'll use those words. And look, I'll admit that he does make an interesting point, and maybe it's not an either or, it's a yes and kind of point that he's making, where it's like, okay, yes, I see your point that we should be, maybe we're not as concerned about saying things like idiot or jerk or stuff like that, where we actually curse somebody, but we also like, it's a yes. And we should still be concerned, though, about those words that are just foul or obscene or profane. Those are words in our English Bible, and we'll look at the Greek words in just a moment. But it does change over the course of time. Like even in the King James Bible, 1 Samuel 25 verse 22 says that so and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave all that pertain to him by morning light, any that against the wall. He basically just says, you're going to wipe out every single man of that family. But he uses that expression. It's like that, maybe that, that would fly 200 years ago. But now that's just a weird thing to say. And I would be uncomfortable if I got that scripture reading.
Can you imagine if that's how we describe gender? Yeah, we got those who sit on the seat and those who piss against the wall.
Yeah. Well, if you sit down to pee, you're not a man.
Exactly.
Some people have actually taken that argument. The King James only people have taken that argument. That's what it means. No, it's a Hebrew idiom or expression to just talk about men, because women don't do that. But it's a weird expression. So that's just my point, though, is that words change meaning. Words, the value of a word is typically assigned to some degree by culture and by predominant opinion. So we do have to always evaluate how these words are perceived. I would say the two scriptures that guide my thinking the most on this would be Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29. It says, no foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need, so that it gives grace to those who hear. Or as the New King James Bible says, let no unwholesome word. And when you look that up in Greek, it's exactly what that idea of wholesome is.
You know what word that is?
What in Greek? Give me a second. I had it pulled up just a second ago. Yeah. So Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. In the Greek language, that word is going to be sapros. And when you begin to look into its meaning, it just means bad, unwholesome, or like literally corrupt. So
rotten, decaying,
putrid, overripe. So it's words that have that reaction. They give that reaction of, and so there are certain words that you just know in society. And that kind of begs another question, is like the F word gets so much airtime. It's in every movie and it's everywhere. Is it becoming so ubiquitous and so commonplace that is it watering it down to the point where it's not such a bad thing if we say it because no one seems to be bothered by it anymore? Do we want to get that relativistic with this principle here? Or do we kind of dig our heels in and hold our ground and say, no, I mean, we know what that word means. And look, some of the other scriptures. So I said Ephesians 4 4, verse 29, but then there's also Ephesians 5 and verse 4. Obscene and foolish talk or crude jesting are not suitable. And so a word like the F word that at its core is kind of sexual connotation. Like, does it really matter how it begins to be perceived by society when that's what it really boils down to? It's crude language.
I think people make judgments about other people partially based on how they speak. And so the words we use matter for our reputation. And Proverbs talks a lot about the value of a good reputation. And so I think it's just important that we really pay attention to the words that we use, especially, depending on the audience that we're around, because we're sending a message about who we are by the words that we use. And I'll just throw this in there. When I was a kid, my mom always used to say, you couldn't find a better word. Cursing,
I like that.
Cussing like that is a bad excuse for a poor vocabulary. And
I like that. And I think when we're asking, like, what is the threshold? Where's the line? And we're trying to get right up to that line. I think we're looking in the wrong place with that kind of question.
Oh yeah.
Could you not find a better word? I like that. It's suggesting, instead of looking for what is the least minimum effort I can get away with and still be considered okay.
Yeah.
Rather than, what's a better way I could do this? What's a better word I could use? How good could I be? I also like this quote from P.M. Forney from his book, Choosing Civility, the 25 Rules of Considerate Conduct. It says, the profanities are the fillers. They take the place of a more sophisticated way of speaking. And that's one reason why over my 40 years of life on this earth, I've been surrounded by people in the Northwest that use obscenity at school or, jobs I've had outside of preaching, that is. And why I've just gravitated away from it is it just sounds like stupid talk.
Trash.
And one of my favorite episodes of SpongeBob is called Rock Bottom, where they get on the bus and miss their stop, and then they go like deep into a trench where it's all these creatures that get no sunlight, and SpongeBob and Patrick are weirded out, and no one understands them because everyone down there at Rock Bottom speaks with an accent. And so pretty much they go, I don't understand what you're saying. And that's what I hear when people start cursing. It's like, it's exactly what Forney suggests. It's filler words. It's almost like a speech impediment. And I like what your mom said there about,
vocabulary.
Couldn't you pick a better word? Could you find a better way to say that instead of just trying to get like the bare minimum?
I was just going to add, so I did a little research. Evidently, there was graffiti from Pompeii that demonstrated that their crude language was a common everyday Roman life thing. And most of the words back then were things around sex, body functions, insults, slavery, family. So we had the similar things. They didn't have the same words, but they had words. And that's what I would see in Colossians 3, verse 8, which is, filth communication in New King James, but it is obscene talk in the ESV. And that word is different than the one we said before, but it basically means shameful or obscene speech. It is interesting to know that this is not something that's just common today, and societies historically have always determined there is a corner of communication over here that is obscene or taboo. Every society will do that. And even our society today, I would say it's so prevalent that we use the F word and use of these words, but we still have rating systems and things that would say they can't be used so many times in family movies. There's still inappropriate and not acceptable in schools, in certain locations and stuff. So I think it's still taboo to an extent,
and I think
but it's becoming more common in our language.
I think as I ponder that question, the more prevalent it becomes, do we get a pass on it? And some of the examples we looked at from older words, I think the meaning changed. Like some of those old King James phrases, the meaning changed. It wasn't just that those bad words became more accepted. And I think that is a difference. For me, it's a conscience issue. And if I know, no matter how accepted or commonplace it is, if it is vulgar at its core or its origin, and I would just say that the way you defined it there is, even if it does become commonplace or ubiquitous in our culture, I think that just makes it a very easy way. Like, it's low-hanging fruit for us as Christians to set ourselves apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we just finished our vacation Bible school where the theme was you are the light of the world. And that comes from Matthew chapter 5 and verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. And then verse 16 says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. And so I've often let that verse guide me in areas like this. The Bible doesn't tell me what words are good or bad. It just says use wholesome speech, use words that build up, use positive words. Don't use vulgar, foul, obscene speech. It's almost like God says, you're smart enough to figure out what that is. I don't have to spell it out for you. And so I often use that Matthew 5:16 verse in my life as a filter. If I use this word, and that's where there are certain words that in high school it's not one of the big five, but I don't say it around mom and dad, but my conscience started bothering me, and that it was this verse that sort of guided my decision and said, if I choose to work this out of my vocabulary, is it going to make my light shine brighter? Yeah. If I keep saying it, is my light going to be just a little more dim? Have I hidden a little bit of that light under a basket? Yeah. Because I just want to blend in and I want to use words that, and all my friends kind of picked up on that, and they're all like, Kyle, you never curse. We want you to say a bad word. Say a bad word, Kyle. I remember one time they were bugging me so much all day that I did, and it just sounded so unnatural. And I was like, I'm kind of glad I did give in because it made me feel stupid. And I was like, that pushed me back in the direction of like, no, there's a reason why I don't talk like them. And I want them to keep noticing that about me. And I want them to change their language around me.
I think you make a really good point about which direction are we going? Are we trying to get as close to the line as possible of what's quote right and wrong, or like what's a bad word to say, or are we trying to get as close to Jesus as possible? And what that question you asked, what's going to make my light shine brighter? Is this going to make it shine brighter or less bright? I think that's a better question than is this a good word or a bad? Is this a cuss word or not? But is it going to be effective for building up the people around me in this situation? And if it's not, it doesn't matter what the word is. Don't say it.
But to that point, because society has deemed and dictated certain words as being obscene or taboo or curse words, you can't ignore that, and you have to actually adapt that because people would hear that and make conclusions on you based upon that. They would make conclusions. Well, that doesn't sound like a very scripturally minded person, or I didn't think Christians cussed. Like they would make that determination. So I think you still need to adapt. Yeah, what is not wholesome, not kind, for purposes of spreading God's word, but you still need to adapt to society a little bit there because they are the audience.
So that brings up another good point, because I have heard I heard someone say one time, when you're working with Gentiles, you got to talk like a Gentile. And I wonder sometimes, is there something to be said for the idea of, okay, maybe I use some of the words that they use that maybe people would consider to be, quote, bad words, in an effort to build some sort of influence or connection with that person, so they don't think, oh, he's just this
religious Jesus
stuffy
freak square
snob that's, thinks he's way up here and I'll never listen to him. I don't know. I've just heard that argument used before.
I think there's a stronger argument to not adapting yourself to scenarios and being an honest, genuine person throughout any social circle you're going to. Because at some point in time, if you reach out to them and you're talking this language over here, and then you're bringing them to church, and then they're going to church, and now what are they thinking about you? No one else curses there. Why? Man, he must not have been that great a Christian. So I think you need to be the same person in all aspects of life. Otherwise, you lose a credibility.
I think people respect consistency.
Yeah. And,
look at the example of Daniel. He goes to Babylon. He's like, I'm not going to eat the food. It'll defile me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quit praying in a public way because it's my custom, and I'm not going to have you change my habits. And so there, he did speak the language, and his name was changed, and there were some, adaptations, but also I don't think in any moral sense, when it came down to things about his prayer habits or what he ate, food that was clean or unclean or defiled him. He drew a line there and said, and I think the king certainly respected Daniel for his consistency. And I think that's important because it's easy to make excuses too. Like, well, I dropped a hammer on my toe, so of course a word's going to come out. But, and I'll just say this, that I guarantee you, like, people notice when you don't curse, when you don't swear. And
they do.
We used to do Monday night basketball when I was a teenager. My dad would rent a gym.
Use Yosemite Sam's words, prominently, or
Yeah, we can share some of our favorite Christian curse words at the end of the episode. But no, we did Monday night basketball, and it was mostly guys from church, but some would bring a friend, and sometimes those friends would start coming to church with us, and we'd strike up conversations, and they always said that they noticed and appreciated we don't fight a lot. It's competitive, hot-blooded men. Sure. So there's a little competitive, but we always apologized or hugged it out, but we circled up, said a prayer before we played, and they just appreciated and always noticed. Like, they all noticed, all the visitors noticed that we didn't curse and swear the whole time we were playing basketball, and people always noticed that. That's why my friends were trying to corrupt me and corrupt my speech, but I think it's easy to make excuses for it. Another one is like, well, when I swear, it's like President Trump, love him or hate him, he's thrown a few F-bombs in there, which is uncharacteristic for a president. But it's like the defenders of Trump say, well, that's, people know he's serious when he uses a swear word like that. And I don't buy that. That's just being inconsistent. It's like code switching depending on your audience.
Well, and in that case, you open yourself up to criticism. And isn't it the same, maybe on a less public scale with us? Like, oh, well, I know Kyle's serious when he drops the F-bomb. Well, why don't you just use another word? Or say, hey, I'm really serious, guys.
Because that's how it's categorized in our culture. Oh, he's using serious talk. In MPAA rating for serious language. I don't think that's...
No, just when I hear F-bombs come out, you sound like a dummy.
Okay, I got a quick story. It was, have you ever had those moments where it's almost like you can see yourself from the outside, like a third person experience?
Yeah. Where someone else takes the controls inside your brain and you're just a passenger.
So I had one of those experiences where I was in the back of my friend's car on the way home from rowing practice in college. I was in rowing. And I was, cursing like a sailor. And I heard myself. It was like hearing myself for the first time. And I was like, you sound like an idiot. Like, man. And ever since then, I have made an effort, imperfectly, but I've made an effort to not use cuss words because it just sounds like you are not very smart.
What words were you using?
Would you like me to say them here on the air, John?
I'll bleep him out.
For all of its problems, the F word can be used as every part of speech.
So we've all seen like a meme or something where it's basically that word has been used for probably up to like 80 different ways. It's a pretty adaptable word, which it's funny because there's fewer words in society where people adapt to more than just a couple different terms. Like the S word is, but again, it can have like 3 or 4 different.
But again, think about how low IQ that is. People are always like, "Oh yeah, it's
we're only using one word."
But it's like, it's because my vocabulary is so limited, and I'm not able to think quick enough to think of a word. So I'll just take this one word and just kind of jam it in where it doesn't belong. Yeah. So it does sound like just stupid talk to me. Like, you sound like a dummy when you use those words because it's just I don't have a better way to say it. I keep coming back to that idea, Nate. I really like that. Let's see. So I think getting back to the original TikTok video and all that, I just, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talks about it's kind of a weird de-escalation. We would look at this as, murder, Matthew 5, verse 21. We look at this as a de-escalation of crime, but also an escalation of penalty, which seems backwards, because he talks about, you've heard that it was said of those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be in danger of judgment. So murder is the worst, but he says you're in danger of judgment. I say that whoever is angry with his brother without cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whoever says to his brother, Raka, which means good for nothing, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, which sounds like the least offensive offense, shall be in danger of hell fire. So it's this weird backwards way of Jesus trying to get them to think about, yeah. So I think the TikToker had a point to make, that we do need to maybe be a little more cautious about saying words that demean somebody, words that tear
yeah.
somebody down.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think based on our conversation at this point, still being mindful of words that are just unwholesome, foul, rotten, and just not worth saying.
So then it's both the actual word itself and then also the meaning behind words themselves. Because, you could take an intellectual person with a great vocabulary and they can tear you apart, kind of like in Happy Gilmore. Is it Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison, where the teacher says, in no way did that resemble a coherent
Billy Madison.
Billy Madison. Yeah.
And
so,
we are all dumber for having heard that.
Yeah. So it's not only just the word, but also how you're using it and what's the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Well, I think if I could wrap this up or try to bring this to some sort of conclusion, I was thinking of James and what James, he's got a lot to say about the tongue and speech. And I think the fact that James devotes so much concern in chapter 1, he says in verse 26, if anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless. It's worthless. And the fact that James gives so much attention then in the 3rd chapter to this topic, it tells me it's too important to just kind of sleep on this and be like, well, words are all relative and don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Everyone says it. Who cares? Look, I've tried and I've been successful at times too with taking words and saying, I don't think I want to say that anymore, and trying to root them out. And it's hard. Just pick a word in your vocabulary and say, I'm going to stop using that word and avoid it. And it's hard. But God calls us to do hard things. God challenges us to raise our conduct higher and higher so that our light shines brighter and brighter, so that the image of Jesus is more clearly visible in us. And so it should take some hard work and effort. And the fact that if we don't bridle the tongue, I mean, for me, that's just part of it too, is bridling means you put some control, you put the reins on it. You are in control, not letting your tongue just and speech take you wherever. Because what really frightens me is if you look over in James chapter 3, my brethren, let not many of you become teachers, knowing that we shall receive a stricter judgment. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he's a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships, though they are so large or driven by fierce winds, they're turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and it boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. So what he's saying here is, and I've kind of missed this point, when he compares it to a bit in a horse's mouth or a rudder on a ship. And he says, let not many of you become teachers. We think, well, because you might say the wrong things or mislead somebody, and you need to be really careful about teaching and knowing the truth, so you teach the truth accurately. And that's not really his concern here. It's that you incur a stricter judgment and that you better have your tongue under control. And the point by comparing it to those things is the rudder turns the whole ship. The bit directs the horse. If you have unbridled speech, you are going to have unbridled behavior. And if you cannot control your tongue, if your tongue is filthy, your behavior will become filthy, because the tongue is the bridle that directs. As you speak, so you do, is sort of what I'm taking away from this. So I look at scriptures like this, and it is just too serious of a topic to take lightly and to not try and do my absolute best. So yeah, maybe that TikTok video made some good points and gave us something to think about. I don't think I'm going to start brazenly saying what I've always thought and believed to be bad words, because I don't want my religion to become worthless.
You bring up a good point, Kyle. Could you use those filthy words? Could you use those cuss words and still be living like a pure life? Like, the point that James is making is this small thing directs where you're going. The rudder of the ship, the bit in the horse's mouth. the tongue in your mouth. It directs where you're going. So could you use filthy speech, unwholesome language, and still be going in the right direction? I think the point is, no, you can't.
Well, and in verse 11 of chapter 3, it says, does a spring send forth both fresh water and bitter water from the same opening? And I think that's when, and he talks about in this chapter too, about with the tongue, we praise our God, and then we turn around and curse man who's made in the image of that God. And that's so inconsistent. And so when we come and use one type of language, when we're gathered together as a church and worshiping God, it's like we think we're fresh water. He says it can't be both. If you go out the rest of the week and the water's polluted, it doesn't mean you're fresh water one day, you're polluted water the whole time. You know, the one spring doesn't produce two different kinds of water. You're just faking one of them. And so again, the kind of language I would use when I'm in the church with my brethren, I shouldn't have a different standard of speech the rest of the time. Otherwise, I'm fooling myself into thinking I'm a tree that can bear two kinds of fruit. It doesn't work that way.
Is there a difference between what we allow into our ears than what we allow out of our mouths? And how well should we, is it an individual thing, individual threshold of regulating that? If you don't have a problem saying it, you can allow as much of it in? Or is it, how do you guys feel about that? I found that using like something like VidAngel on movies, I can remove a good 20% of all the audio in a movie.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of these little gaps and stuff, but it's actually been beneficial because I don't have the conscience issue that I have with it's like, hey, there's something I do want to watch that movie, but it's got a lot of language. It doesn't have anything else in it. I can go ahead and filter all this out, and I look at that and I'm like, okay, well, that satiates my issue around it. But I don't know that I can say, hey, everyone else should be concerning about too, unless we do see there is a strong connection between what you allow in your ears and what you allow in your mouth. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15:33.
Yeah, but like if I don't have a problem with saying it and I'm really good at regulating it, is it then up to my own personal self-management to say, well, it's okay. I'm allowing myself to hear all this, even though I'm not going to say it.
Now that depends. Is the story in the TV show like really, really, really good and thought-provoking? Sure. Then maybe that makes it okay.
It's okay, right? It's
no.
Funny.
Because
I mean, when dry bar comedy came up, it's like some of it's funny, some of it's not funny. I like that funny stuff. That lots of curse
Dane
words.
Cook.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think it's popular of a conversation because it's so hard to find media, music, movies, shows, anything without it in it. It's so prevalent that it is really hard to regulate it from coming into our ears. But that's the question. I mean, yeah. What do you think,
John? I think you make some good points here because I've always thought
not enough. Yeah. We're moving on.
Pretty much you're wrong, but not all wrong.
Well, it's not a Bible verse, but I think it is a biblical principle of garbage in, garbage out.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but if it's not like I do believe that a lot of the times everything is so much self-management that needs to happen in this,
Yeah.
Less from maybe a pulpit, more from people making good choices and regulating what they have problems with and then addressing those things. Being honest with oneself and saying, if I have a problem with this one, then I need to create a solution for it. But that being said, can we lie to ourselves too and say it doesn't have an effect at all?
Well, and this is where it's like you have to understand that there is some subjectivity to it. As in, like, subjective is in, where do I find myself lining up? But the Bible doesn't define what's a bad word. It's like with my kids, it's like my kids say buns, but other kids, they said but. That's a bad. Well, okay, it's up to their parents to decide to them. Like,
yeah.
And as adults, we still kind of have the same thing. Like, should we watch R-rated movies? And some people are like, absolutely not. Others are like, well.
But I get what you're saying, Kyle. There is some subjectivity, but we already identified that.
Yeah. However, there
is some commonality.
There are principles here as far as where specifically you line up on, should you listen to any songs at all that have bad words and watch any movies at all? Or is it like, where do you draw your line? Like, well, this is too much. This is too dark. There's a little subjectivity there. But I also think the reason that's there is I'm starting to understand what my wife meant when she said, but I want you to want to do the dishes.
Yeah.
I don't-
isn't it bothering you?
Why
doesn't it
She
convict
can't
you?
be the one making me do it. I have to look at it and say, I want to do it to please her. But I think if I start, but my point is, if I start drawing the line for you and say, you can't watch an R-rated, it's like, well, now you're doing what I'm telling you. You're not doing what you believe to be right or wrong. But a principle here is Ephesians 5, verse 11. It says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. We're in the light. But rather expose them, for it's shameful even to speak of these things which are done by them in secret. That's one of those principles I look at that says, again, how much filth do I want to let into my life? Well, that's the wrong question. If it's filthy and I find it to be filthy, then I should want to choose, because I am in God's light and I want to be walking as a child of his light. I should choose, therefore, I'm just not going to be part of it. I'm not even going to talk about this stuff. I don't want to perpetuate it.
Yeah, let me be clear that I think we are actually really good. Generally, people are really good about being able to separate what we hear versus what we put out. I mean, think about some people who are like police officers and stuff.
Oh boy, yeah.
You hear a lot of stuff out there. Do I expect them to turn around and that's what they put out and that's what they feel is acceptable? No, and teachers, right? People will hear all kinds of stuff, and I don't think that what always goes in is what's going to come out.
I bet you've thought about hitting a child
Probably.
on more than one occasion, Nate.
I thought you were going to curse.
It's only cheating if you get caught, right?
It's not that I think I know lots of people who probably don't have problems with
John
certain
is
things,
judging you if you don't have VidAngel.
who don't have problems with certain things, and I've never heard them say a curse word. It's not like I think one is correlating. I'm just trying to understand it as I raise my kids and as I have certain language around, maybe in the house or a radio or whatever it is. It's like, is it enough just not to say it, or do we need to filter it even further? Like, is it just
walk as a child of light? I think that's the guiding principle I look to. Is I want to walk as a child of light, and that does include what I subject myself to versus just only thinking about what do I put out there.
Well, and God didn't give us black and white direction on every single little thing that we are to do. He gave us some principles to go by, so that we could judge for ourselves. Hey, is this a good thing for me, or is this not a good thing for me? Am I becoming closer to Jesus by doing this, or am I going further away? And he doesn't spell out every single little scenario where that is the case. And that's where kind of that idea of maturity comes in. We do have to make a judgment for ourselves. Okay, is this going to be a good situation for me? Can I handle this? Is this, the best thing I could do in this situation? Maybe it's not sinful for me to, I don't know, watch that R-rated movie or whatever. Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. But maybe it's not the best thing for me. So, as a mature Christian, I'm just going to say, you know what? I'll go the other way. I'll watch something else, or I'll turn on VidAngel or whatever.
I wish I could get sponsored by.
I was just going to say,
some money off of that
and
way.
today's sponsor, VidAngel.
No, I honestly, it was a recommendation from another brother, and I thought that was actually really, and we used it, especially when the kids want to watch something, and I just can go through and know exactly
what they're going to say.
To an nth degree what's going to be in there and remove it all. And my kids even now just ask, hey, we're having a sleepover and we want to watch this movie. Can you filter it, so we can watch it? And I think that's a good practice to get them thinking about that, things should be filtered. Life should be filtered and addressed. So,
well, I want to finish with a weird story in Judges chapter 12 that you may or not have read, but there was a little quarrel between the judge Jephthah and his people from Gilead. So you had the Gileadites, and the Ephraimites came over and said, hey, why didn't you invite us to fight with Ammon? You took all the glory for yourself. And Jephthah's like, I did ask you and you didn't come. And so I had to fight all by myself, just us Gileadites. And without your help, thank you very much. And so a war broke out, and the Gileadites, they mopped the floor with the Ephraimites, and they captured the fords of the Jordan, so the river crossings. And so it says in Judges 12, verse 5, they seized the fords of the Jordan before the Ephraimites arrived, and when any Ephraimite who escaped said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead would say to him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" And if he said no, then they would say to him, "Say the word Shibboleth." And he would say, "Sibboleth," for he could not pronounce it right. I guess they had kind of a lisp in Ephraim. Then they would take him and kill him in the fords of the Jordan. There fell at that time 42,000 Ephraimites. When's the last time you thought about that story? But there's a simple point I'm making here. The Ephraimites lied about who they were, said they were somebody they weren't. But their speech revealed the truth. You might tell the world you are a follower of Jesus, but if you don't work at bridling your tongue, your words will give you up for what you really are.
Kyle, that was a good episode on something that we're all exposed to or have struggled with in some way, and definitely some food for us to think about the words that we are using, not just cuss words, but are they bringing us closer to God or moving further away from Him? Is it making our light shine brighter or less bright? So thank you for that episode, Kyle. And if you found this to be good, then please like, subscribe, and share with all your friends.
Welcome
Welcome.
what is it? To biblical
Bite-sized biblical discussion.
no,
Do you want me to do it?
What did we do?
Conversation?
Last time?
Bite-sized biblical
Destruction.
destruction.
That's what
Yeah.
we did last time.
Destroying strongholds.
Yeah.
Can you turn down my headphones a little bit? Your voice is
Very loud.
My voice is loud.
Yeah.
How's my voice?
Incorrect.
I would say it's more like sharp, piercing.
Check 1 2 1 2 3. Is that better?
That's
is that
much.
better?
That's much.
Okay.
And
Nate, are you so sensitive too, or are you fine?
No, I'm pretty. Okay, there, big fella. All right, that's a little better now.
I like to hear myself. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You that's why you started the podcast.
That's what. It's
so you
essentially
so you can hear yourself.
the whole point.
Yeah. What? Why else have a podcast?
Why go through the painstaking effort of editing a podcast if you don't enjoy? Which is really funny because those are the episodes.
So Ryan got excited when I told him we were recording the one about cuss words, and he's like, "Oh, great!" When John edits it in 6:8.
Did he?
His words, not mine. And so, like, okay, well, what makes a curse word or a cuss word? What is foul speech? How do we define that? And then maybe I want to emphasize, what excuses do we make? Oh, well, people know I'm serious when I curse. People, so they'll take me serious.
This is gonna be an interesting topic because I don't talk to people on a regular that curse, so I never hear any excuses why.
They don't curse around me, so I don't know.
Right. So,
It is kind of funny when they you like to curse, Kyle?
I mean, he likes to hang around people who do, I guess.
Oh, which of the elders are you referring to? I do admire, Kyle, how you don't need notes. You're just like, "Rah," and then it turns out.
I wouldn't say that I don't need notes.
And then it turns out excellent. And I'm over here going, I read my stuff exactly, and I thought it was great, and it's not. And it's not.
Kyle, I admire how you just don't care what people think about you, even when you should.
Shrimp.
And shrimp.
Yeah.
Crap.
Like boat, but another word for
Because
boat.
that's
Yeah.
what they say. That's one of the SpongeBob curse words. Is he goes,
Yeah.
"Holy shrimp!"
Got
Like,
it.
he actually said that in a kid show.
Nice.
And
Well, it would have been fine if they didn't add the holy in front of it. and then
yeah,
it became
or
blasphemy.
they'll say fish paste,
Fish paste.
barnacles. Oh, barnacles. That's another one they use.
Oh, yeah.
SpongeBob all the time. There's a couple others they use, but